Number one is a mentor. I highly recommend a mentor in the field. This is why I coach pelvic health, because I've been there, done it. I was in debt. I had all the problems. And that is why I became a business coach for pelvic health therapists.
I like when people get excited about what they're an expert at or what they teach. I like it even more when they're excited and they've got a great track record for doing that. And that's what our guest today has. So I'll tell you about Kelly in a second. Right now, I want to ask about you. Where are you going in your career? You've heard about this thing. I mean, maybe you graduated just a couple of years ago and you heard from professors say, you can't do travel therapy until you got 5 or 7 years of experience under your belt. I'm here to tell you that that's not necessarily the case. This is a great way to hone your skills and see the country and make pretty good money. Embark on a patient care adventure. It's code for travel physical therapy with Jackson Therapy Partners. This is perfect for PTs who really want to figure out where their license can take them. So see where your skills can take you at jacksontherapy.com. And how about the thing that you interact with? I see this online all the time. Who are you happy with your EMR? People always looking for something different, right? It's because you don't have all those things in one. What if you did? MW Therapy's all-in-one outpatient PT EMR. You get the seamless integration of patient portals, marketing automations, and billing, all in one unbelievable value, all in one tool. Switching also is a breeze at mwtherapy.com. Finally, clinic owners, would you like to boost your clinic revenue by $290 per patient per quarter? Yeah, your eyebrows just went up. Enhance patient outcomes, ease provider workload, and turbocharge your earnings. Remote therapeutic monitoring can do that, and Physiotech can do that easily. Make it simple for you. Find out more on how you can get started at physiotech.ca. That's physiotech.ca. Our guest today loves to show, not tell, show other practitioners how to get out of debt and thrive in pelvic health. Our guest, Kelly, the owner of Orthopelvic PT and Pelvibiz, is on a mission to help pelvic health therapists break free from debt and build great practices so you can do the thing that you went to school for, which was help people. She helps you help more people. She's also helping people as a therapist. She's not only talking the talk, she's walking the walk. So we dig in with Kelly as she shares great insights on debt, cash-based practices, and how not to track someone down in a parking lot. It makes complete sense. So I'll just get out of the way and let Kelly explain it here on PT Pintcast. On the show, the owner of Orthopelvic Physical Therapy and Pelvibiz. Pelvibiz?
Pelvibiz.
Pelvibiz. I like that better. She's on a mission to help pelvic health therapists break free from debt and build thriving practices. All, this is important, while living a healthy life, which should be the goal. We're diving into another episode where we're using the six-pack format, which is like one problem or idea and then 6 sort of suggestions or answers. And the prompt or the question we're talking about today is like the 6 things every PT should know, or really every healthcare professional should know about getting out of debt. So first of all, Kelly, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm excited for this because I remember, when did you graduate from PT school?
2008.
2008. I graduated in 2016. And when you graduated in 2008, because this was a second career for me, when you graduated in 2008, how was, women's health? Because that was really women's health back then. Now it's like pelvic physical therapy, which is probably a better name. How was it sort of like looked at in terms of like opening your own business in 2008? I want to see I want the audience to see how far this has come.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So if we all remember, that's when the recession hit. Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so that's when the recession hit. So student loan rate, just FYI, was at 9% interest rate, which I know most of you guys didn't have that, but I had the joy of having that. So that was fabulous. Oof. And then when I got out, I wanted to do orthopedics, but then I was a Pilates instructor for 18 years. And I just saw that like, hey, there was a need for pelvic health and no one was doing it. So I was in Atlanta at first and I was at an orthopedic clinic. And I'm like, guys, can we just like put up a curtain here so I can like do pelvic health? And they were like, what? You're going to do internal exams behind this curtain? And meanwhile, everyone's like doing backflips out in the gym, like right next to them. And all my friends thought I was crazy. And they thought like, why would you do internal exams all day long? And it wasn't even a course I even had in school, nothing like that. And they did call it women's health. And everyone just thought I was crazy. And I was like, I want to be different. I'm going to do something different. And that's how I got into pelvic health.
Well, I love the Everybody thought I was going to be, everybody thought I was crazy, right? And there are a ton of crazy ideas that don't pan out, right? Amazon was one of those ideas that sort of did pan out. Have you ever seen the picture of like Jeff Bezos sitting at like a Windows like 95 computer, and he's got a spray painted banner behind him that says like Amazon in spray paint, and it's like, would you have invested $1 in this guy? And the answer is probably no. But you had that, but you and Jeff Bezos had this thing that you had in here in your chest that a lot of people looked at it and they were like, that's not going to work out. What was the thing for you? Like what was the thing about that, about working with pelvic floor that made you say, I know you're saying it's crazy, I'm going to do it anyway?
Yeah, I just saw the gap because of the Pilates experience I had before of working with women, and everyone talked about their leakage. And I was like, no one's solving this problem. The number one we see is as a diagnosis is low back pain. And I knew that there was a big correlation that no one was talking about the pelvis, but everyone has back pain. And I just went into it because I didn't have any of those issues, but I was like, no one's touching it. I want to be the first, or I want to be, not the first, but I want to be close to it. So that's when I dove in and just started to integrate it into orthopedic practices.
Couple things I like about that. One is, and this is not my definition of innovation, I stole this from someone, which is innovative, actually, if you think about it. Just won't invent your own, just steal the definition. And the definition of innovation from a guy I used to work with, his name David Petrino, said, find a problem that everybody sees it. It's there. They look at it and they say, that's not my problem.
Right.
Or someone else will do that. Right. I call it the dead raccoon. And there's a great image on the internet. There's a million of them of like the two lines going down a highway, the two yellow lines. And the guy whose job it was to paint the yellow lines gets to a dead raccoon in the middle of the road. And he does one of two things. Well, he does one of three things. He paints over the raccoon, just keeps going. He gets to it, goes around it, keeps going. Or he realizes his job isn't actually to paint the yellow lines. His job is to paint the yellow lines well. And he gets out of the machine, moves the damn dead raccoon, which was not on a job description, and then he continues to paint the lines. So it's like, find something that everybody just looks at and they're like, no, I'm not touching that. You did that. And the second one, the reason I think it was successful, because you identified a problem that existed.
Right.
You really wanted, like there was passion behind solving it. Those are the two things you sort of need, like a problem and you need the gas.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And then it was just so impactful on women. And that's what really, drove my rest of my career. And it continues to drive it, is to keep empowering women, whether or not it's with their pelvic health issues or financially. It is all about empowering, women and saying, hey, you're so much more than you ever think you are. So, yeah.
So this big thing, right? We can talk about anything that you look at and you're like, that's not my problem, or it's scary, I don't want to touch it. We're all sort of guilty about this in our own life. Sometimes it's finances and sometimes it's debt. And we're just like, as long as I don't look at the balance, it won't exist. And it's not real. It's just a construct. But that's the episode today. 6 things every PT or every healthcare provider should know about getting out of debt. So let's jump into the 6-pack, Kelly. Number 1, you say investing in ourselves. So what inspired you to sort of raise the question of why we invest in significant student debt, but often neglect to actually invest in ourselves to actually make money after graduation?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I have to say is when I went into PT school, I didn't even know what an interest rate was. I mean, I hate to admit this. Yeah, I didn't know how to open a bank account. I didn't even know how to even sign a check. I came from a very poor background, and no one even talked to me about money whatsoever. And so I think the biggest issue was in PT school, the last day, opening up, guidance counselor came in, opened up this thing, and it said $230,000 of student loan debt. I remember looking at my husband sitting next to me, and his had over $100,000. So together we had over $250,000 in student loan debt coming out of school, making $62,000 a year, thinking, oh my God, how do we even get here? I don't even know what a credit card is at that point. I didn't even have a credit card. Like, how am I going to pay this? And I think that was the biggest shocking moment because they didn't warn us about this. I didn't even know what investing in myself even meant at that time. But looking back on it, that was an investment in myself. But the question here is, was it a good investment? Or was it a bad investment? And at that time, like I said before, I had an 8 and 9% interest rate on these things, which you weren't paying down anything because I couldn't even afford to live. So it was, now looking back, yes, PT school or OT school is an investment in yourself, but the question here is, are you going to make it a good one or a bad one?
Right. And I guess the question there is, or the next step is, because how do you determine good or bad? Mm-hmm. Which is, you're going to make the investment to do something, because if you just get on the assembly line and you pay the minimum balance, or you take the lowest viable job to work for someone else, and there's nothing wrong with working for or with someone else, but you have to understand the levers that are being pulled and the levers that you have in front of you to pull. So is it a good investment? Oh, we go back to this phrase that we love in PT, which is, it depends. What do you just got a tool. You got a couple things. You got knowledge, you gain skills, and you got a license. Now, what I can do with the license and what the person next to me can do with a license, that determines what we're going to do. What we're going to do, that determines whether or not that was a good investment.
Right. And I think back then, they always told us in PT school, don't work. You cannot work. And I think times are turning now where they're like, oh, you can work. Let's create side hustles while you're in this practice or while you're in physical therapy school. So I think now there's a different mindset. But back then, guys, they told us like, you can never have a job. It's never going to work for you. You must always focus on school. So that was also the mindset that they were also feeding us. So, you know, now going 3 steps ahead, I would say, at least for me in my situation, which we will get into, it was a good investment. But on the flip side of that, if I look at my husband, he works at a traditional hospital job, on his end, I think he would say, no, it wasn't a good investment for him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're talking about investments and pros and cons and what you'll be able to do with it. So let's talk about those pros and cons of running a cash-based business. Because you talked about we were fed, you can't work. Don't work. Another thing that I was fed, and again, I was a couple years after you graduated in PT school, you needed 5 to 7 years of experience at minimum, and you needed to be able to risk $100,000 to open your own any business. So what advantages do you see in the ability now? I mean, just even watching, they're just doing it. People are just doing it. They're doing this model. What challenges, pros, cons should people consider in opening up a cash-based, it's almost like bad words, cash-based practice?
I know. And that wasn't even like a thing when I came out. Like, no one was talking about that. We did the traditional brick and mortar route. That's most people what they did. And then you just went to go work for someone else. That's all we were taught. Yep. And then slowly but surely, this cash-based model started coming out. And the things that I recommend for doing that is you do not have to have years of experience to open a cash-based model. You do not have to have even $1,000 to open a cash-based model. I only had $800 in my bank account, and I used $400 of it to actually open my business. I was just mobile, and that's all I did. I spent $200 on a table and then whatever supplies I needed on Amazon. And that's all I needed to start a business. That's all you guys need to start a business. And you just got to have drive, passion, and that's really it. So it does not take much to actually, which is amazing, because if you look at other companies, and like a lot of times you have to have investors and you have to raise capital, and especially for products, you got to develop and whatever. But the reality is, the special thing about healthcare, guys, and I think we should take advantage of this, is we don't have to raise capital to start a business. And you don't have to get in debt to actually start a business. You can really start literally your business with $400 in your bank account, and that's it. That's all you need.
Well, you did sort of invest and raise capital. Because you're the show, because we're providing a service. So like we're the thing. Right. So then you determine the market, and I love this line, which is you determine price, but they determine value. So if you can demonstrate why you are worth that price, you are in fact worth that price. If you cannot demonstrate that, then I'm sorry, you're not worth that price. I forget who said that, but once I heard that, I was like, oh yes, I determine price. I say this is worth $20, and then someone looks at that and goes, that ain't even worth $5.
Right.
They're right, unless I change because someone said, well, is that value or perceived value? And I was like, it's all perceived value. Value is this thing in the air as I gesture wildly. That's what value is. All right. Yeah. Well, I love hearing that, which is like, you're just you're not lowering the bar. You're just putting it in perspective, saying, listen, if you but you did, I like how you mentioned what you don't need. You don't need capital. You don't need but what you do need is, say them again, you drive a passion.
Yeah. Passion and just willingness to do whatever it takes. Like I was willing to go down 2 hours away to treat a patient, like basically sleep in parking decks,
Yeah,
not
you
go to
told
the
this
bathroom
story
for like 8
before.
hours. Yeah.
So
Like,
you're
yeah.
reminding of the story that you told before. Like you were like meeting. Was this you that was like chasing people down at a park?
Yeah. So I went, how I started was the pandemic of 2020. And I really just, no one was outside because everyone was afraid of, the C word. And, I just went to trailheads, running trailheads, and I was just yelling at people. I had no business shirt. I had no company name. And I said, hey, I would love to do a movement assessment on you. You want to come to the parking lot here and let's do some drills in between these lines and let's assess. And that's how I started getting my patients.
Which is a great way to start a business or to kidnap people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the Venn diagram of kidnappers and you started a business in 2020, which was not advisable, but you didn't know that. But look at that. Like you started in the hole, man. I mean, I don't know if hopefully there's not going to be a bigger hole in our lifetime to crawl out of, but sometimes you got to, just meet people in parking lots.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. You just got to be willing to try and just do whatever it takes. And I did feel like a homeless person that I was a doctor on the side of a freaking trailhead yelling at people. It was probably the lowest moment, but if you're willing to do that, you're 100% going to make it in business.
All right. Third part of the six pack is debt-free after school. You mentioned, the idea of this insurmountable debt. So help people understand the practical steps or advice that you might have used and give to new grads who are looking for that thing, that the double F, financial freedom, so they can have autonomy in their careers.
Yeah. So there's a big things here. So let me just back up here. So when I came out of school, like I said, I had $230,000 of student loan debt. I decided to get 4 jobs because I needed 4 jobs. One of them was making me $62,000. Then I started using in other skills that I acquired before PT school, which was a Pilates instructor. I was a personal trainer. I then went out as well and went to all these 5-star hotels and asked them to be their concierge PT. So I have 4 jobs. And I would stop work potentially sometimes at 3 a.m. and then go and work at 7 a.m. at like the normal clinic, work there till 3 and then redo all this other kind of stuff. So that being said, if I just had one job, my a paycheck and a half was going towards my student loans. And it wasn't like I was trying to like kill it and pay these student loans down. That was just a normal what the amount was, right? So I remember this, I had $500 a month to pay my rent, to eat, to do any activities on. I had $500. I said, I can't, like, it's just physically not possible.
Right.
So that's why I had to get these other jobs. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, after 3 or 4 years of doing that, I was so burnt out, decided to move to all these different other states, New York, Portland, California, everywhere, Atlanta. But the problem was the same exact problem that I had in Atlanta was actually in all these other states. I just thought changing the state, changing the job, it's going to change my problem. And it just didn't, because guess why? It was the same system that was being implemented all throughout the US. So then I was like, okay, I've got to do something different because this isn't working, because I just can't work more hours. It finally, like, I had a light bulb moment.
Time for money.
Where I was just like, yeah, I can't just keep getting more jobs. It just doesn't work. Like, I'm tired.
Right.
Okay. So that was like an aha moment. So just FYI, guys, you can't just get more jobs and job your student loans. Like, it's just not going to happen. So then I was like, okay, I got to work smarter. So maybe I'll get a side hustle now while I have my job and start seeing patients. Well, I got in the same situation. There's only so much time before and after your job that you have that's going to allow you to make money. So I was like, well, this sucks. I can't do that either because I'm still tired.
Sure.
So that's when I had to make the decision to say, you know what? I've just got to go all in on my cash-based practice. And at that time, I had no patience. I just was like throwing a freaking ball in the air and wishing like it doesn't drop. It was just really, I had hope. That was about it. Yeah. And I tried it. And then within the first month, I had only hit $800 in my bank account. And I was so desperate. I needed $4,000 to live, to pay my rent, to to pay everything, right? The student loan payments, everything. And I was like, I'm either going to sink or swim. And I just went for it. And I was able to make $4,000 that first month of being in business, standing on trailheads, sleeping in parking garages, basically, and
Wow.
contacting everyone basically in the state of Virginia of, hey, if you need my help, I will drive to you. Doesn't really matter where. I will come to you just so I can make ends meet. And that's what I did.
I want to understand, what was a concierge PT for a hotel? I've never heard, like, what, like, how'd
Yeah.
that work? What was your pitch?
So what I did is I was fortunate enough. I actually tried to save on my car. So I didn't have a car in Atlanta, and I would walk to my office. I didn't own it at the time. I worked for someone else, but it was a 5-minute walk to the office. And in between that 5-minute walk, I had all these 5-star hotels in Buckhead, and
Okay.
I would pass them. And so I would see the door guys every single day, and they would see me walking in the rain, the cold, all that kind of stuff. And I would always just go up to them and talk to them in the morning because I love people. And I'm like, guys, can I please come and like help you guys out? And they would tell me, no, 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 no. Like, can you give me the contact of this person? No, they don't. They would give me the runaround.
Right.
Finally, after about 6 to 7 months, it took me for me to actually get contact information of like the head concierge people. And once I said, hey, I'll come at any time at night because I live right here. I will walk to you guys and I will bring my table. And at that time, I had like a rolling cart for my table. And I'll come and treat you guys at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's going to make you guys look good because you can get people to come help your people out at whatever time of night. And no one was doing that because no one thought about it. And I was like, yeah. And so they started calling me. They called me for this like king of another country. That was my first customer. And I went up to his hotel room. The butler has to walk you up there and all the things, set up my table. And they're like, this is amazing. Like, you're really helping our customer service and our
Yeah.
experience out. And then they were like, hey, can you present to the Atlanta Concierge Society, which is all the 5-star hotels are connected in Atlanta. And so they have meetings every month. And so then I was able to do a presentation to all the hotels. And that's what got me into all the hotels.
It's access.
Access. Yeah. Well, and just asking and being.
No, what I mean is, right, but what you provided to them was access to a solution.
Yes.
Right. Because what they want to do is provide a 5-star service.
Right.
So if you've ever seen, gosh, I forget what movie it was, but it was about like a hotel concierge, and it was like, hey, I need a present for my wife. And he's like, I know a guy, got a guy. It was like the guy at the front desk at Pretty Woman, right? He knew he knew everybody, first name basis with everybody. It's like, you knew. And it's like, how do I become the solution to that problem? Talked about pelvic floor. You saw the problem.
Exactly.
I didn't realize that was even a thing. Like, I never, 5-star, if something's wrong, you need it solved 5 minutes ago, because the name of the game there is no issues. Everything is smooth, right?
Yeah.
You were working for how many at one point?
How many hotels? Oh, probably like 6 or 7 of them. Yeah.
You were like, I'm the solution. This is the number. You call this problem. I show up, problem over. And they're like, got it. So you're all right. That's perfect. I love this.
Yeah. And then people will start to they'll refer you. So
Sure.
Because there was tons of movie set producers coming in town for Atlanta. And I knew that there was over 20 movies being filmed a month in Atlanta at that time. And so I knew all these people were coming in and they all needed help. And so then they would start to gift you to their producers so that they felt good and that they were then these actors that we know really well. Then they are trying to suck up to their producers. They're like, hey, can you also work with my producer? And so it was like a domino effect. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now that you're not chasing people down in parking lots and you're not trying to, have them do sprints between parking lot stripes, where are they now? Let's skip to the present, and you can see the kind of the juxtaposition of not being in parking lot. Like, describe what your business looks like now. Like, what do you get to do?
Yeah. So now, I have a brick and mortar practice. I also have an online component to it as well. I also help coach pelvic health therapists. But if we're just going back to the practice piece, now I hire therapists, I hire managers, admin. So that's really cool to just have a staff that we really can collaborate with and really promote and move the mission of pelvic floor therapy forward. So that's really amazing and just impacts so many people in our community. And with that, like, I get to put on these summits that I came up with. One was called like a Be Well Women Summit, where I had 40 locally women-owned businesses come together online. We had over 1,000 people attend, and locally in our area, so that women know and like get the word out there that like, hey, there's an issue, and like all these women in our community can actually help solve it, but people just didn't know that these businesses existed, and I just wanted to bring it to the forefront. So that was another thing I think that's helpful, is just bringing a community together. Guys, if you want to get out of debt, how can you, and I think the theme of this podcast really right now is, how can you see a problem and then solve it? Because that's truly actually how you're going to get out of debt, is
Sure.
when there's a need and you're able to solve it.
Next thing I wanted to ask, we'll keep in the format of the six pack, is you mentioned people, right? Who are the people that you would suggest? Is it a financial planner? Like, who are the people you can bring in that know your problem, if we're talking about debt, who know it so well that you're like, yeah, because it's not just necessarily have more jobs, because then when does Kelly sleep? Apparently in parking lots. But who are the people that maybe you didn't know existed before? I'm talking about professions of people that you're like, this person, when you put them on your team, it 10x's you. Like, who would you suggest people pay attention to?
Yeah. Number one is a mentor that's been there, done that. I highly recommend a mentor in the field, because those people actually have been there, done it. They've done the thing. This is why I coach pelvic health, because I've been there, done it. I was in debt. I had all the problems. And that is why I became a business coach for pelvic health therapists. And then I think the other biggest thing is an amazing CPA. And I get this question all the time is, Kelly, well, what questions do you ask a CPA to truly know if they're amazing? I had 4 CPAs, and I can tell you this: one CPA ripped me off like $80,000. And I didn't know, because it was like my first year in business, and I just really overpaid the government. And it was horrible. And at that point, I had to kind of test different CPAs. And there's not one specific question I can tell you guys, like, ask your CPA this.
Yeah.
It's hard. You got to kind of just vet them by, hey, this person's a business owner. How has your experience been with this person? What are the results that you've been getting with this person? And going from there. It's really kind of just connecting with other businesses that have a CPA.
So a CPA is definitely someone you got to have on your team, and a mentor. Is there a third that you could come up with? Who is the third? Who would be the third?
I would just say one person that massively also supports you, and the fact that has massive belief. And that person for me was my mom, because she was the only person that believed in me when I started this thing. And because she believed in me, I felt like I could do anything and make whatever possible.
Just keep going. Yeah. My mom is the same way. And sometimes that's hard, because I'm like, Mom, you got to be critical with me a little bit. Cause I'm like, I'm amazing. Like, sometimes you do, but when you really need it, it's sort of invaluable. And when they're like, they know to do it, you're like, yeah, okay. And then you're like, maybe she's right. Maybe she just always says that because, she gave birth to me. But also, like, shoot, maybe she's right.
Yeah. No, moms are always right, by the way. Moms are right.
Yeah.
My mom, I call her, she's on the top of my board of executive for both companies, because she always gives me the best advice. Always.
Last question in the six pack for this is predicting the future, or I should say not predict, but prepare.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you are regularly doing to look 3, 6, 9 months, or maybe 1, 3, 5 years, or like how do you look at where things are going, or what do you pay attention to in terms of how do I pay attention to something now to set me up for success then?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing, especially in physical therapy or occupational therapy, I think the biggest thing moving forward is we will become all cash. I'm predicting it now. I really think that that's the case. I only see that that's the way because of insurance reimbursement going down and lower. PTs and OTs are requesting to get paid more and more. And if we want to talk about that, I mean, that is, if you're trying to get paid more, just for anyone out there listening, how you can get paid more is actually bring more value to your company than what is just past the norm. And that may be selling packages. That's how I do it. That may be getting Google reviews, getting video testimonials. Those things bring massive value to a company. And so instead of just telling me, Kelly, well, the stats in my area say I should be paying $90,000. Well, I need you to prove that you're worth $90,000 by doing these other things. Yeah, show me. And let's build this thing together, and be happy to do some kind of sharing or profit sharing or something with you. But let's build this together. So going back to, where do I think this is going? I truly believe that the new wave is cash based model, and always just staying on top of it. So I have tons of mentors that I rely on and do tons of outreach and mentorship and community events that will help guide me see trends, and then, bring it back to the pelvic health world, and then be the first ones to get after it. And then I teach my clients, what to
Sounds,
do.
sounds like the answer is people.
People. Yeah.
Yeah, and paying relationships and paying attention to what people are saying, right?
Yeah.
And okay, if the person that I trust is saying this, based on what I know, what is a good next move? Knowing that nothing's perfect.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, it's all start and ends with people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Always.
Are you ready to do a segment on the show we call 60-second PT?
Yes, let's do it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw you questions super fast for 60 seconds. The faster you answer, the more questions you get to ask.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Kelly, your 60-second PT starts right now. What's your favorite part of being a physical therapist?
That I don't treat patients anymore.
All right. Summarize physical therapy in just 3 words.
Mm-hmm. I'm sucking at this game. Summarize physical therapy. Can we pass? Next question.
Sure.
Okay.
What's the most rewarding part of what you do?
Help people achieve their goals.
What's one myth about pelvic physical therapy that you see and you want to eradicate?
That we just do Kegels all day, and that's not true.
What's a common mistake new grad PTs make all the time?
That they are just coming at you with physical therapy skills or occupational skills, and that's not it. You got to learn how to communicate.
What's one piece of technology that you could never live without?
Instagram and a cell phone.
Yeah, you got to. What's a book that every physical therapist should read?
Explain Pain.
All right. Finally, if you could change one thing about healthcare and the system, what would it be?
Everything, but if I had to narrow down one, I would eradicate insurance 100% because it's not for the people.
It's not for the people. You said we're going cash based. All right. Kelly, that's your 60-second PT. Well done.
I don't know.
All right, now we're going to do a thing called 3 questions. These are a little bit more geared towards you.
On the hot seat with 3 questions on the PT Pintcast.
All right, 3 questions. Let's thank our friends from ATI for bringing you 3 questions. There are 900-plus clinics ranking high in merit-based incentive program. If you want to join their team and kickstart your career, ATIPT.com. All right, 3 questions. Your first question, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? Superpower, what are you doing?
Being able to read people's minds better.
Wouldn't that be great? It would just it would speed things up, and we wouldn't, there's no miscommunication if you could read people's minds.
100%.
That's smart. Let's go back, a little nostalgia twist. What's the most memorable piece of advice you've ever received from one of those mentors that you mentioned before?
Plant the seeds and let them grow. And that it was the biggest thing I could say is just all I could have a picture in my head is just like plant all the seeds. Just keep planting until they start growing.
Love it. All right. 3rd question on 3 questions. If you had to choose a completely different profession, you can't be doing what you do now, anywhere near it. What would you choose and why? Where are you going?
Maybe I'd be like an Instagram traveler person and just like Instagram all my vacations.
Yeah, why not? Pick what you love doing. All right, that's 3 questions. Thanks to our friends at ATI, again, ATIPT.com. Last thing we do on the show, Kelly, is called the parting shot.
This is the parting shot.
All right, this is your chance to wrap it up. It feels like the theme emerged. There was some themes emerging. So parting shot brought to you by our friends from the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy. Find them online at orthopt.org. Their industry-leading current concepts resource take you from wherever you are in your life to that OCS exam if that's where you want to go. Find it at orthopt.org. Kelly, your parting shot. What do you want to leave with the audience?
Just invest in yourself in ways that's actually going to give you a return on your investment. And there's so many different ways to do that, whether or not you want to go cash-based, whether or not you want to go online, whether or not you want to work for someone and help grow their company, but you guys grow together. Find ways that make yourself more valuable to anyone and everyone. And that overall is going to give you the best return for you to actually get out of debt.
And that rising tide just lifts all ships, right? So figure out how to be valuable. Maybe you're going to be a concierge. You know what? I want someone to DM us in like 6 months. So like, I listened to Kelly, and now I'm the concierge PT at like 3 hotels in my town.
Yeah.
Because like I've never heard that before, and I talk to a lot of PTs. I've never heard that before, so that's great. Kelly, appreciate the time doing a little 6-pack with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
All right, they say the best conversations happen at happy hour. Thanks for coming to ours.